Mr. Goodman, you're ready to go? Okay. I'd like to call this Saline City Council work meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. on Monday, April the 1st. Members present are council members Gearboss, CO, Rice, Lesh, Harmont, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mayor Morrow. From city staff, we have the city manager, the city clerk, the treasurer, the wastewater treatment superintendent, our DPW Director Searles, and Engineer Humphreys. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are additional amendments.
So moved.
Moved by Dillon. Is that seconded by CO?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. There are no absences this evening, so we'll proceed to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested, but of course not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? There appear to be none from those in the audience today. Clerk Royal, did we receive any written communications in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? No, easy enough. Then we'll move on to the one and only discussion item, which is a follow-up on the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. City Manager O'Toole, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you. So for this budget workshop, we're mainly presenting the differences between our first budget workshop and the latest update to the FY25 budget, as well as talking about committees and commissions. I don't think, do I turn this on? There we go. Perfect. So this is a reading test. If your eyes can't see this, please see a doctor. This is a summary of changes across general fund of the differences between the first draft of the budget that we presented to you and today. Largely, these are associated with changes that were made because we are eliminating the economic development activities within the EDC budget and putting them into general fund. So you'll now see that there's a new department in general fund that's 173 economic development. There's also some changes. We had to correct, there was an incorrect allocation of the one of the four persons time to the rec complex that has been corrected to the appropriate allocations within the general fund. We don't charge the rec complex for a portion of Alex Link's time because they have Brian Sprout to do their maintenance.
As it relates to the EDC, then, will there be a forthcoming proposal or motion on the council agenda to dissolve the Economic Development Commission?
I don't view any particular rush in that because we can simply just eliminate the activities within the budget. Yes, it will be forthcoming, but I won't commit that it's going to be within the next 2 or 3 meetings sometime in the future. We want to present to the EDC about what the plan is, why the vision is moving this way, things like that. And certainly it's the easiest to just close out this fiscal year with that process.
Are you planning then, or is the city treasurer planning to present to the EDC at their next meeting, which is next week?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
But just before our, not next week, the following, sorry.
It got
2 weeks.
rescheduled, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. Was initially for next week and then.
Yes, yeah, now it's the 15th. So in addition to the changes inside the general fund, there were just a few small changes inside the other funds. Obviously, again, when I mentioned EDC, but also a minor increase inside of the sewer fund, and then a more significant increase that we'll be talking about because there's an action item on that later tonight. And those are related to, those increases are actually related to the FY24 projected. Just because this does come up periodically, we also took the time to summarize very briefly all of the projects that are currently or will or anticipated to be funded out of TIFA and LDFA for this and the upcoming year. So this is really just intended as an FYI, a good kind of one-stop shop for seeing what all projects are being funded with those special tax dollars. And then last but not least, there was some comment from council members regarding starting to set a vision for committees and commissions. The 4 committees that we kind of identified as having the most budgetary activity were environmental, parks, DEI, and arts and culture. So we have received annual reports from all those committees at this point. Some of them have more substantive changes than others that they've presented on. For example, DEI is actually slimming down its budget to focus more on its core mission, whereas Arts and Culture is expanding its budget for Jazz in the Park. So we just want to kind of open up the opportunity to discuss any committee or commission-related vision-setting comments. And then last but not least, I know it's very good news. We're in an exciting and exceptional financial position because of some of the recent changes we've been able to make. But I just wanted to highlight for council's edification the importance of continuing to be fiscally responsible. I personally don't like some of the trends I'm seeing in the economy right now. I know Treasurer Cole shares that sentiment, and we want to be mindful of maintaining that strong financial position coming into FY25. So with that, any questions?
All right, let's start with comments or questions relating to the budgets of any of our boards and commissions. City Manager O'Toole, perhaps you could go back, I think it's 3 slides. I think that one,
This one?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to keep that on the screen, at least for the time being. Let me start to my far right this evening and end to my far left. Councilmember Lesh, either as a council member and or as a liaison to several boards and commissions, any comments that you would like to make regarding the proposed budgets for some of our various boards and commissions for FY25?
I think they're reasonable. The arts and culture, obviously, is going to be a little bit of a high lift to get up to our $10,000 that we're hoping to get for Jazz in the Park, but, you know, they're getting a much earlier start on it this year, so, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to meet that goal.
Very good. Mr. Seal, any comments, questions regarding board and commission budgets?
No, sir, none.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
So just to kind of understand, so arts and culture is asking for a larger budget, which requires their fundraising to go up. Are we willing to compensate? What if there's a shortfall? How is that going to be addressed?
So the way that it works, I mean, right now is if council approves the event, which it has at this point, if there was a shortfall, the general fund would be responsible for that. Or I think they have some flexibility in simply just not scheduling as many performers. The major cost of that event is the performers. So I think it's just going to be a back and forth with that committee and staff to find the sweet spot, so to speak, in terms of how much they were able to fundraise and what they can afford.
Okay, thank you. I'll stick with arts and culture just quickly because they had provided their annual report in tonight's agenda. And there are some tasks that they do, which I think we've had a conversation that I mentioned to you, I just want to say it out loud, that I don't think should necessarily fall within their realm. I think they're more of city, their maintenance of sculptures and art and things like that, that I think we need to understand what's the city's responsibility, what's arts and culture's responsibility, what their scope is as a volunteer organization. And so I just want to make sure that with that one, that there is a little bit of flexibility if we need to take on some of the tasks that they're currently doing. But I also think that at some point in the future, we should consider some kind of perpetual fund for arts in our community that pays for upkeep of activities like this. I also think that our parks should, you know, we create paths and whatever, or we have groups that do it, that create projects for us, but then we're sort of left holding the bag of maintaining those, like Gaga ball pits or things like that. And so understanding, are we going to own that task in the future, or are we going to put it back on those organizations that are creating them? And so it sort of spreads across a couple of the groups. So understanding that piece of it, I'd like to kind of better understand. And then obviously there's the Bixby marionettes, which is always the elephant in the room of, at some point, we're going to have to make a decision as to what's going to happen with them. And so I don't want to leave that burden on the Arts and Culture Commission. I think the city as an entity is going to have to decide what we want for the future of those. like I said, I'm just trying to sort of find that balance between them being a volunteer committee versus a subcommittee of the city. And so understanding that piece of it. Parks Commission, I think we need to make sure that, because there's some miscommunication or in the community, that the Parks Commission and the Parks and Rec budget are completely separate things. So people have asked, well, where is this, this equipment update or things like that, and they're not coming from those elements. And so I think understanding that, and we can sort of, I think the Parks Commission now is doing a great job of understanding and explaining to the community, especially in their report, about that aspect. And then, so anybody that has not submitted a budget, are we taking any late entries? Or is it, you're not getting money this year?
I think at this point, we have heard from the staff liaisons, at least of every committee or commission, either that there's no changes to their budget, or if there were, what and why.
Okay. Because the one thing that I did not see in there, and I'm not sure if it just lies someplace else within our bigger budget, is training.
Each of the committees typically has a line associated with training within their own. The one exception, the one that's a little confusing is just the Historic District Commission, because HDC is consolidated with our historic assets themselves. So that training could be either for a member of staff or for the Historic District Commission. But the rest of them do have some sort of training line item typically.
That the city provides to them, that they don't need to
Correct.
incorporate into the budgets they submit to the city.
No, the city doesn't necessarily provide the number. We'll roll forward whatever we had budgeted the previous year in most cases. But if they have like a special request, they would need to make that as part of their budget.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I have a few questions that are unrelated to boards and commissions, but I'll wait till the end, wait till we exhaust any question concerns that exist about commission and committee budgets. I do have one comment, reference the Arts and Culture Committee, specifically the Bixby puppets. We as a city, and I don't think there's any, there's no way to put it delicately, we've been kind of dithering on that issue for a number of years, probably as far back as 2008, 2009, when I first got on council, and there was still an independent Bixby Marionette Trust Committee that maintained the collection. And subsequently, under my predecessor, it was absorbed under Arts and Culture, which I think was an appropriate decision. I think it's fair and reasonable at this juncture to give staff, the Arts and Culture Committee, any external stakeholders and interested parties until the end of this calendar year to determine a future for that collection, i.e. a large permanent display or some entity that could take long-term ownership or responsibility for the maintenance and preservation of said collection. If such consensus is not reached by the end of this calendar year, then I think we approach the Bixby family about renegotiating and or dissolving the trust agreement that was approved in the 1990s. I think it's just time now that we set some firm deadlines for ourselves. I think the remainder of the calendar year is more than sufficient to develop a plan. If there's not an appropriate plan that can be developed, fine, then we have direction and we can approach the family about revising or amending said agreement. That's all I've got. Mr. Gearbaugh, any questions, comments regarding commissions or committees?
Just a couple. At the city manager, we spoke about HDC and have that additional 5,000 in there for potential consulting.
Yes.
Okay. Want to clarify that. That was in the intent to get support to help us. It was support to help us for assessing the Rose Street Historic District.
So that should be.
Planning Commission, I know it's not on here, but this may be just a general question. We've continually talked about site plan reviews and all of that, and we know that there are some legal aspects and such. Do we have sufficient funds in there to address it if we need to have an outside consultant, if our staff cannot address that concern?
The
Remember
site plan compliance.
Yeah. We at least get caught up.
I guess understanding the intent, the way that I do, yes, I believe that we have sufficient funds, dedicated professional services for miscellaneous activities that come up like that.
I mean, maybe it's more an operational aspect, but I mean, we've talked about it numerous times at the Planning Commission, and we'd hope that we can somehow get that to move forward. I know it's always been a more concern on staff time than it has been on the,
Well, and I guess my more recent understanding is there's also a legal concern that it borders the question of selective enforcement if we're randomly selecting a site plan to check. So the approach would more likely be identify a section of our ordinance that we want to prioritize ensuring that is in compliance, and then going out into the community to do what we did kind of like with signs.
for me, it's the issue of how do we accomplish it? And if it means having to have additional staff, or hopefully the policy committee will review this, maybe that'll be part of the thing that'll bring.
I think that'd be a great question for the policy committee, and I also think it'd be a good discussion item for planning commission to look at this through the lens of what deficiencies within existing site plans or within existing facilities do we currently identify as deficiencies, whether it's landscaping, lighting, sidewalks.
Yep.
Choose your poison there, and then develop a strategy to go and ensure compliance across the board in that category.
And that kind of comes about, we have all our commissions and everything, and they come together to try and generate ideas, but I don't think they have the leadership of what we've been doing in terms of strategic planning, where all of these individual committees, they have staff, they have individuals involved, but I'd almost like to see at some point funding that's not necessarily training, but actually helping them. We do a master plan every 5 years, but we never say, how are we going to accomplish some of these things that we have in the master plan, especially for parks? We all leave it on the staff's hands, but how do we integrate that with the actual members of the commissions? Because I know that some of them struggle from any one of these in terms of what is their role in play and their role in that and in what we do as a city. So something to think about in terms of budgeting is exactly that, is bringing in someone to help assist with making a strategic plan for each one of these specific types of issues. I see some of these have struggled for a couple of years and trying to understand exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think, obviously for us, step one is creating a true strategic plan for the city as an organization. And we are well on our way to accomplishing that goal now. And from there, I think there is a natural opportunity to then bring that vision down to the ground level where our committees are operating. And that's what I'm starting to see, and with, staff's buy-in, especially committees where we already have like a department head as the staff liaison, staff's buy-in and council's buy-in collaboratively on that strategic vision is really going to be the driver within and among the committee level. So yes, I think once we have that strategic plan finalized, we can take the document to the committees and help them to identify where they fit within the broader vision and some specific goals to accomplish that.
Okay. Because I think that's been one of the things, is trying to figure out a way to reward those individuals that are participating, but actually understanding where we need to go based upon what the whole.
Absolutely. And like, what volunteer doesn't want to know what the mission is, what the vision is? Yeah.
If you could maybe enhance a little bit more on that $9,600 fundraising goal, similar to what we set for the farmers market, we indicated that unless those funds were there, the program wouldn't move forward. I have no problem if they have a larger fundraising goal of $9,600, but it should be incremental related to, if they don't get $9,600, we're not backfilling that $9,600. So I don't know if that's been clearly indicated to them, because this is like committing $10,000 without having a guarantee to it.
Well, I believe they've already fundraised about $1,500.
And maybe Mr.
Yeah.
Lesh, as the liaison to the Arts and Culture Committee, can speak to that. Have there been funds secured thus far, and have letters of solicitation already gone out to entities and individuals within the broader Saline community?
Yes, they have. Actually, we've gotten commitments from several businesses. We just haven't gotten the checks from them yet. So it's in the several $1,000s range at this point. So.
Right, because I wouldn't want to have any contracts signed at this point in time, although I know you need to do some, but there needs to be a consistency, because we know that things have come up short in the other fundraising aspects.
Yes, and I believe the staff liaison was communicating to me that this year they will be paying the musicians at the event instead of paying for everything in advance. So I think there'll be some more flexibility with the scheduling and the overall expenses.
Okay. And so paying at the event, we ran into this problem with Celtic Festival when we had performers there, and they were taking it out. So that will be handled through our
Ella's going to
payroll.
handle it, don't worry about it.
Thank you.
And the event is, remind us the date of the event, it's at mid to late July?
July 20th.
July 20th.
With that, I think that's really all I have with commissions right now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Rice, questions, comments regarding commission budgets for FY '24?
Yeah, I think to address Mr. Gearbaugh's concerns, we've done a lot of talking in our committee on committees meeting. And I think we feel like we're getting to a good point, as the city manager was pointing out, with our department heads and staff liaisons. And so I actually just emailed all of you and the city treasurer, because perhaps we should add this as an addendum to this work meeting, the Parks Commission's objectives broken down by, the same that the Arts and Culture Committee did, broken down by objective and then activity and what needs funding and what doesn't need funding. And we worked really hard this year to tie those to the Saline Parks and Rec 5-year plan, which is sort of that overarching dream of all dreams sort of plan. But we looked at, like, what are the low-hanging fruits that the commission could look at tackling. So we focused a lot on things like creating volunteer organizations to help maintain the parks and doing some of our more small ticket items that commissioners can do throughout the park system instead of having, perhaps DPW do them. So one of the main things that we're doing this year is we're going to start creating Friends of the Parks program. And so our first meeting is in April in Mill Pond to get people who, are always using Mill Pond Park to become sort of contributors to that park. Once we build these relationships, we can hear back from people what's needed out there. And we can all, work together to meet some of these goals. And that's really the purpose of the Parks Commission, right? It's not to be the Parks and Recs department, but it's to be champions and stewards of the parks. So that we focused really heavily on that for Parks Commission. And then same with DEI, we're focusing on those activities that as a city and as a community, we can start making some headway with DEI. For instance, myself actually and Treasurer Cole have joined with the schools for community forums that they're going to be hosting starting next month. And we're starting to do activities that don't cost financially, they just cost in, time and energy. And we've designated staff time and things like that within our budgets. But going forward in the conversations that we've had about committees on committees is just that, the focus on when we have strategic goals at the beginning of the year, the council rep and the staff liaison will lead those conversations with the commissions and say, okay, as we're setting our goals this year, here are the overarching city goals. What can our committee or commission do to help achieve those goals? And then we'll build our goals from there. So we're not starting from scratch. It's also, our strategic plan is staff and council led. So it's more of like, people yearn for that guidance from council. Like, what does council want to see from these committees and commissions? We'll have it right there on paper. It'll be in our strategic plan. So I think that'll set the way for us to start aiming towards those goals. So yeah, I think it's a work in progress, but I can already see changes being made even without having that sort of a document. So I look forward to moving forward with that. That's all I have to say about that. I will also echo Mr. Gearbaugh's comments about the $9,600. I'm not comfortable putting that as a line item. I would be more comfortable with filling a small gap if needed, if they put forth their efforts, but right out there at the beginning of the budget, saying that, we're setting aside $9,600, that makes my stomach turn a little bit.
So I do want to clarify that there's two sides to that. There is a $9,600 revenue item and a $9,600 expense item in the budget.
Okay,
So it's not just the expense item that's showing, it's the donation item as well, if you look under our revenues.
okay, I missed
I don't
that.
have that line item readily available, but we could find it real quick.
I missed that, but again, I still do want to reiterate, and through Mr. Lesh, to that committee, and I think they did a fantastic job last year.
Yeah.
But let's start from the get-go, and, I've worked on different committees for fundraising, and I have confidence that the effort will be there, but I do not have confidence that the community will be there because times are tough. So, but I do commend them on that effort. I also echo Mayor Pro Tem Dillon in that I think the Arts and Culture Commission could really use council's guidance on activities, especially as they pertain to, the arts and culture experiences in Saline. We've got the Arts Around Saline program, which has been fantastic. We do have some reservations about where those are ending up when they are removed from buildings. Right now, as I understand, there's quite a few in the basement of this building. So just some additional conversations that I think perhaps we could share with Mr. Lesh, and then he could share with that commission if you were amenable to that. But again, I think it's just one of those commissions that, with a little extra guidance from council, will be fully successful. I just don't think that we've provided perhaps that level of detail over the last few years. So I think that's all I have on committees and commissions. I do like what Mr. Gearbaugh is saying about planning commission and spending extra time focusing on what these master plans are and not just focusing on the project sitting right in front of them. I think that's a good idea too. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Harmount, any questions, concerns about the proposed committee budgets for fiscal year 2025?
Yes, so I'm new to the budget, the whole budget process, thanks to Al for walking me through last week. So I just guess I have a question is about the budgeting. So if the original proposal was for, X and now we're double X, I'm not understanding about the revenue offset that wasn't, how do we know that that revenue is going to be there to offset? I'm also not super comfortable, like if all of the commissions exceeded their original budget by, 200X, then we had to make up the fundraising or make up the variance, that would, I'm not understanding how we would be able to cover that. So is this extra amount in the budget?
The extra amount for the Arts and Commission or just?
For the jazz in the park specifically?
Yes, so right now, as of this draft of the budget, we do project that they will meet their revenue goal, and we have that as a revenue line item, and then we project that it will equal expenses, so we have a commensurate level of expenses within their budget. Sure.
I'll just share with you what we did last year as well, because we had the same situation, only on a smaller scale. So we tracked the donations very closely, and then as they were getting ready to start spending money and preparing for the actual event, we made sure that the amounts didn't go over, or if they went over, it wasn't by a lot, like less than $100. So we were fastidious about that process, and we would be again this year as well.
And I will say, the Arts and Culture Chair took the time to come and meet with myself and Treasurer Cole to sit down, to walk through their budget, took all the time in the world to really understand what we were trying to accomplish with this. So credit to them. I think that committee, at least at this point, has a very solid understanding of the city's budgeting process. And if it's similar to last year, I expect we'll have very open communications with them over the next couple months as they're preparing for that event.
Okay, so if this event were to get rained out and we had very minimal attendance, then would we meet the revenue?
No, but in all likelihood, you'd probably just reach out to the donors and say, will you roll this forward for next year's event? And then, we
Well,
just.
I mean, we would still be moving forward with the event. We just wouldn't have the revenue for it,
The revenue doesn't come from the event itself. The majority of it comes from donations.
Really the entire thing, because there's no admission fee to the event.
Okay, so, but we're not meeting, we haven't met yet the anticipated fundraising, correct?
Correct.
So is there a point, like if we're having this event in July, that we need to be at 75% of the fundraising? Or what's the countermeasure? Like, is there going to be a, if the countermeasure is we didn't meet this, then we need to dial back something, like just to minimize the exposure of having to cover that?
So what I did last year was I monitored and tracked the expenses and made sure that they were never, and the chair and I were in constant communication. It worked out wonderfully so that we were in a spot where we were never spending more than already had been donated.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions, Councilmember?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll do one more round specific to boards and commissions and committees. Mr. Lesh, anything else you'd like to add or additional questions you may have?
Just going to put in the point too that we're trying to come up with some forward-thinking ideas too, and similar to what Ann Arbor does with Top of the Park. This year, I believe the committee is going to actively solicit the patrons who show up to the event to pay it forward. So hopefully next year, we'll have a good start on the actual planning.
How will the sponsors be recognized?
There are several levels anyway, according to how much they donate. For, I believe it's 100 to 250, they get their business put onto material, social media. For over $500, and they become a major sponsor, and they get to have their sign put up on the stage and all that sort of thing.
They get their logo?
Yep, logo, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Lesh. Mr. Seal, any additional questions, comments, thoughts pertaining to board and commission budgets for fiscal year 2025?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Easy enough. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
No, I think that we've covered it.
Okay. Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just one regarding Planning Commission. I know we spent $35,000, or approximately $30-some-odd for a master plan. What's the carry forward for the master plan for this year? I'm looking at the Planning Commission basis.
So, yes, that's actually, that line is a placeholder for the city's share of match for the
Grant.
2 grants we got.
Perfect, okay. I just wanted to make sure it said master plan and it wasn't professional.
Yeah, it's not the best descriptor, but it's kind of, we needed a special place to account for those.
Okay, nope, thank you.
Very good. Councilman Rice?
The only other thing at the moment is that, I know we're going to have our work meeting in a couple of weeks to discuss community health and wellness. And I think that's going to be a perfect opportunity to take a look at how we're connecting all of our committees and commissions as well. Parks and Environmental have done a great job where we've met, we've had folks meeting back and forth and joining meetings and working on some joint projects. But I think there's opportunity pretty much with every committee and commission, in addition to when we do community health and wellness, to work together a little bit more closely. So I think that's another thing that I would like to see in the upcoming years, to start integrating a little bit more together and maybe have something a little bit more fully integrated for FY26.
Very good. Councilmember Harmount, any additional questions pertaining to board and commission budgets for the upcoming fiscal year?
No, I don't.
Easy enough. Then let me start to my right and to my left. Mr. Lesh, any outstanding questions pertaining to the broader proposed budget that staff has prepared for the upcoming fiscal year?
Hope it all looks very nice.
Okay, Mr. Seal?
No, sir, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Thank you. There's a couple of issues that I've mentioned to the city manager that I'd like the city to look at right now. I know that we are looking at purchasing some equipment for our DPW to create their own signage in-house versus having to order out. I don't know that I'm at the point where I feel as though we've explored that enough to understand what the payback is on it. Is it just a convenience for us? Is there actually a savings at some point? So I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And beyond the dollars of it is just, I don't want to take on another piece of equipment that right now we don't have the bandwidth to utilize. So understanding what exactly is our use for it, when are we going to use it, how much are we going to use it? I would rather see the dollars, this 5 minutes, put toward, finishing up certain projects that we have. And, But one of the other parts is that if we are looking at equipment, when I was on vacation, one of the pieces of equipment that was everywhere were these portable generator light fixtures that are up, they're telescoping. And they were used at construction sites, they were used when streets were closed for festivals, they were used on the beach, they were used everywhere. And wondering whether or not the city should look at something like that, that is a multifaceted product, or if, something like that would still be better to be rented, is just understanding what that would look like for us. But I just feel as though right now, with the sign situation, I want to make sure that we're not taking on something that we really don't have the time to do at this point. I know that we do, when we do construction projects, road projects, we do look at the all-encompassing signs within that area. And so new signs are ordered, is my understanding. I don't know whether or not we're looking at replacing street signs or if it's what it is that we're doing. But I feel like we have a couple of open projects that, maybe something like that gets incorporated into the sidewalk project. And when we do a quadrant of sidewalks, then it gets all the new signage attached to it. I just want to see where it's going to be used, how it's going to be used to understand that. Because I just don't want to see a piece of equipment underutilized.
I will note that Foreman Link let us know that it's about 5 weeks, and we did order a light tower for activities this upcoming season. So we have that item. It's about 5 weeks out. So we will have one of those.
Appreciate that. Do you want to comment on the sign-making technology?
Yeah, the sign, the $35,000 for the sign shop, we can get a very good price on common speed limit signs of 25, 30, 35. We can get a good price on stop signs. We can't beat that. We wouldn't try and roll them off. But when I'm looking at parking lot signs and signs for our parks, stuff that we want to brand, street name signs, those are all custom, and those are a minimum of 6 to 12 weeks. 6 to 12 weeks when I don't have a dead-end sign or I don't have a Washington Street sign, we really get a lot of heat for that. I'm not proud of our sign inventory. It's not very reflective. Some of it's not maybe the most current materials. So if we're going to invest in the appearance of the overall city, I think owning the ability to make our signs will save us huge dollars over the long haul. And I could easily come back to council before the budget's adopted and give you some examples of cost estimates for just pick a street sign. So I could do that for you. It makes us way more fluid, way more responsive. But again, obviously, you want to know some numbers, I'll bring them.
Just understanding is, for me, just understanding what that is. And I understand in the scheme of things, 6 weeks sounds like a long time for a sign. It's just, do we need them turned around that quickly? If we know that, yes, there's always going to be that sign that is stolen, deteriorated, whatever, and it disappears all of a sudden in the middle of the night. And I understand that you want an immediate sign, but I don't know that needs to be the expectation. It's sort of going back to the expectation of mowing our parks. Who is setting the standard? Is it us, or is there this false expectation of what we're supposed to do that's not related to our workflow?
Right. Yeah, no, I like to, obviously, regulatory signs, Ms. Dillon, we want to get those, but we can get those. The other signs, to me, the wayfinding isn't that critical, but I do catch a lot of heat when the sign's down.
Right. Well, and the other piece is that I would like to make sure that we are very consistent. I mean, our parking signage is leaves a lot to be desired. We have some that are blue, some that are green, so people think that they mean different things. And it was like, no, somebody just had this idea that blue was the universal color, and so we did some in blue, but we never.
A lot of sign work out there.
And so, I mean, I understand what you're saying, just understanding what that's going to do for your staff and what that's going to prioritize. Because, like I said, I feel like we have a lot of projects right now going, and is that really where we want to put our focus and our dollars?
Any additional questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, hold on, hold on.
I got a question, Larry. Okay.
Well, no, let me, I got to stick with one council member at a time. I'm sorry, folks. You'll all get a chance. I'm on Ms. Dillon right now.
Nope.
She has additional questions. If not, we're going to move on.
Thank you. So understanding, I appreciate that you highlighted the things in here of what's changed and such. The one thing that I was trying to kind of understand a little bit more was, and you had sort of highlighted it in the very front. So the things for the rec center, the foreman charges, is that we were charging them for something that they shouldn't have been charged for, so we're just taking it back on? Correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure about that. And then understanding, we've moved the LEDs, the DPW LEDs out. So do we not have workforce, do we not have dollars?
Of this projected year, but they're still in for next budget year.
Right,
So it's just a timing issue, yeah, of whether it could get done before June 30th. It can't get done before June 30th, so we'll have it entirely
Okay.
in next fiscal year.
okay. I appreciate that. And then I think at some point it would be very beneficial for forward-facing if with TIFA, LDFA at 1 and 2, if we created something that shows what that district is, what can be used, what can't, so that people understand where those dollars come from and how they can be spent. If
Yeah,
there's
I
a
think,
way that,
I believe we have the map available publicly.
I posted a summary sheet of all the different units and what they can be used for, what the restrictions are for, and everything that, when they've been created, all of that jazz. So, and then for the presentation tonight, I took what we had planned for spending out of each of those districts and put them, so you could see the projects that we
Yeah,
would
that's
be
what-
using the money for.
okay,
That being said, we always want to make sure that we capture and use as many of those dollars on an annual basis as we possibly can. So even though this might be our plan, there might be something that comes up that there's a big need for dollars for that might take priority over some of these items, and then we recalculate it.
right, okay. And I'm just going to end with our unassigned fund balance. And that number has definitely taken a turn for the good. What I want to understand is, are we looking at carrying this? Are we looking at assigning things? Are we looking at additional projects? Because I'd like to understand where we're at.
Yeah, well, one, I think it's very healthy for us in this upcoming year to be towards the top end of our scale, simply because there are certain economic factors at play right now that we don't know which direction the housing market may be heading, and it takes a long time to recover that lost revenue when there is a hit to the housing market. But two, I mean, things like the sale of 207 Monroe, that was money, we never budget for land sales when they happen because you never know that they'll get across the finish line. That's a good example of whether or not we want to take those dollars and earmark them or restrict them for some other future use. I mean, it doesn't even have to be specifically identified at this point. Even if we just have a broad use in mind, we can create a reserve balance for those dollars.
And I guess that's what I want to understand, is that going to be a separate conversation, that right now we can prove the budget with
Yes.
the line the way it
Yes.
is, and then we'll go back and maybe have a work meeting?
We always do that as part of our audit process, if you remember. So we typically wait to have the confirmation from the auditors as to what our fund balance reserve is, and then we would have a conversation, and Treasurer Cole and I would make a recommendation regarding either restricting or allocating dollars for a specific use. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, and I'd like to also add that we have several very big projects that we are, funding with loans. So just because we have some extra cash available now, that may not be the best use of dollars. So we'll get together, we'll put a whole plan together and give you some recommendations kind of after we get through the audit process.
Looking forward to it, thank you.
I've got two items, and one I have previously addressed or discussed, with the city manager and city treasurer, and had a separate conversation with the police chief. But I do believe, either in this upcoming fiscal year or the subsequent fiscal year, that some dollars should be set aside to complete the accreditation of the Saline Police Department. It cannot be the top priority today, because the top priorities need to be successful integration and transition to Metro Dispatch and making sure that we have adequate staffing levels in the police department. But I do see that probably beginning in 2025 or even in fiscal year 2026, that we would have the bandwidth and capacity to move forward with that project. I do think, though, it's going to be critically important that we bring in somebody from the outside to help complete said initiative. So I just want to make that clear, something that I'll continue to bring up, because I think that going through the accreditation process is indicative of having a progressive, well-staffed police department with adequate, up-to-date policies that effectively meet the needs of the people that they serve.
And I think that's a great example of something, as we complete the audit process for this fiscal year in November, December, that we could, those are the type of items, certainly if any of you have ideas on your mind, please, feel free to share them with Treasurer Cole and I, and we'll try to incorporate as part of our broader vision and
Again, I don't want to
recommendation.
confuse the fiscal years and calendar years. I think that's
Yes.
probably something we can start to move forward on beginning in calendar year
Year
2025. What fiscal year it falls in, I think, is yet to be determined.
Yep.
Okay. And then my other question is probably, well, it is for the DPW director, or maybe more specifically the city engineer. I seem to bring this issue up every couple of years. And I'm going to start by highlighting some successes. So the limited patching project that you, city engineer Humphreys, helped initiate on Maple Road prior to the resurfacing and the upsizing of the East Belt sewer line, I viewed as very successful. In fact, had we not had to do the limited patching, was it more Larry? My apologies. Well, congratulations to whomever was involved. Yeah, both of you, working in conjunction with one another. That limited patching obviously would have lasted several more years had we not had to move forward with the upsizing of the East Belt sewer line. The city engineer's predecessor initiated something similar, I believe, either in 2017, construction season 2017 or 2018 on Bennett Street. And so my question is twofold. One, would there be resources available in this budget, or could we make resources available in this budget to do other limited patching? And both projects required us to secure an external contractor to perform said work. And have you and or your staffs evaluated certain streets that would qualify for that type of solution? Because I'm mindful of the fact that you can't have significant deterioration in order for that type of product solution to work.
Well, so we have significant local and major rehab dollars for the roads outside of Capitol. That's our lane striping, our crosswalks, our sidewalks, some sidewalks, and our joint sealing, crack and joint sealing. There should be, I was hoping to have enough to do some heavy patchwork, and I already had it picked out on Barnes and Beach to buy us for some time. Because just like Bennett, which needs more, I think right now that might be our top priority for whatever's left on June 30th.
Okay, all right. Keep us in the loop on that, because again, it's just a way to extend the life of a road, and it's very noticeable. Yeah, and it's very noticeable to the people we represent. And I cite two roads specifically, Bennett and Maple. It made I thought, a huge difference. Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Mr. Gearbaugh, any additional questions pertaining to the proposed budget?
Just a couple things. As it comes to these things like accreditation, all those, I would hope that a lot of that will be driven by our police chief. I mean, I know that was a former chief's initiative, but whatever we need to do on that should be based upon our current leadership and our new leadership to make sure that that's what they need to achieve at this point. I also want to make sure that we have sufficient funds identified or can be set aside for however we're going to evaluate the new fire authority or what entity that will revolve from that. At this point, I want to make sure there's enough money if we need to do our own independent review or whatever else at this time, because I think there's a lot of balls up in the air right now, and we need to make sure that we're approaching that appropriately, if not only for our own interest, but for the whole community as a whole. The one item that you mentioned, Mr. our DPW Director Searles, yeah, I would like to see potholes as a priority, wherever that money is, because as many as I've reported, it continues to amaze me that they don't necessarily get resolved. And so whatever we need to do to make sure that's an issue, and I'm not trying to throw you out there, but it's clear to me that as many as I report, and whether it's based on your needs or whatever, I hope that the priorities that we make for this year, including whatever we do with stump removals or making signs or whatever else, that you have the resources or the software or the ability to make sure that those things can be balanced within your staff and so that those things can be addressed. So if there is anything like that, please make sure that the manager is aware of that, and I think she is, but if it requires some additional staff or some other thing in order to make this more efficient for your office, that's what we need to do. And the one other question I have is, we talk about our unassigned balance. Is that number that's presented here the 20%, or is that just another number? We have our assigned balance, we have our unassigned balance, both of which are significant, and trying to understand exactly what is the dollar amount that we need to reserve for that 20%.
Well, if the goal is 20%, I can come up with a number for you. Obviously, it's an ever-flowing, changing number based on what we
Right.
have in our CAFRs. So that's something that we can figure out very closely. This is just more of a monitoring now of kind of the opposite situation we were in, a year ago.
Right.
So the same process is outlined in the fund balance policy, that whether it's over 25 or under 15, that we will bring some proposals to council.
Right, and for me, it's just make over the 15, I'm not the 20, whatever our number is, sorry.
I think it's between 15 and 20.
Keeps going. We have a significant amount of money out there, I know, and there's some of these projects, and I know, as you mentioned, that we need to pay off, but if there's some money available to fix some of these roads, then we're going to reallocate those funds to fix roads, because that's a priority in this community. For me, the other aspect is to make sure that we've made some very, very conservative approaches, concerns in that, depending on what we can do, we need to address these things, especially, no matter what, is resolving brown water. That is an issue. So whatever we need to do to make sure that gets resolved, again, is our priority in this community. So thank you.
Councilmember Rice, any additional outstanding questions regarding the proposed budget?
Nope, nothing else.
Councilmember Harmount?
I just have one question based on Larry's comment about the signage. Larry, can I ask you the question? And this is kind of more, it's a specific question and a generalized question. So when you are met with a make versus buy type of scenario, like with the signage, is there a standard break even in the amount of time? So like if you looked at how many of these signs that you bought in the past, like what average of the last couple of years, what would be the break even to justify the need to purchase the equipment versus buying the individual signs?
Probably just the few signs for the parks and the new parking lots. That would probably break even.
Okay, you've run the actual specific
I
number.
have not, but I will.
And I guess that kind of goes back to, do we have a standard break even, like in our policy or whatever, saying, okay, if we're looking at this, it needs to break even within 2 years, it needs to break even between X month? That's just more of a generalized question.
Well, I guess I'll answer like this. There are priorities that I've been able to spend time on. We have a very rough sign inventory, as in a mounted GoPro camera, driving down the road, bring it back, get the data. We have a lot of staff time need in signs. We're right now just working on the downtown parking, because that has been moved up the priority chain. But I haven't had time to do what I'd like to do with signs, because as we're working through these road projects and water main projects, trying to get that done first. We have a lot of signs in Saline. We have signs of the same thing, blocking signs of the same thing. So one day we're gonna have enough time to come through and then start in the program where we actually, someone had said, we will actually put new signs in with projects. Right now we don't do all of our signs at every project. But we're going to change. We need just like with the roads where we went and got the cores and we went and got the pacer ratings, we need some sign data back before I really know how many signs we need. We have been going through the traffic control orders with the no parking signs, because we need to get that downtown done. We've got some painting coming up. We've got some sign work that we have to do. I don't have the data right now, Jen, to share with.
Yeah, I would just recommend also you include the labor of making the sign, if we're buying the equipment versus buying the sign separately, just as far as that break even. And then I'm assuming with the budget, I guess my overall question is it this budget that's proposed going to best reflect what the needs of the city are? That, I guess, is the most pertinent question that I have in general.
Yes, I believe that it does. I mean, if you look at where our priorities are, the major expenditures, the capital projects that we have here, the majority of staff time, the majority of our capital dollars go into water and sewer infrastructure projects. And right now, we've determined that the top priority is underground infrastructure.
Thank you.
Mr. Searles, before we wrap up, to piggyback on something that Mr. Gearboss said, and I also sent an email to the city manager, I think last week or the week before, regarding potholes. Since you're on the agenda, in fact, the last action item under new business is an item from your office. Can you stick around for 5 minutes subsequent to that to speak very briefly during the discussion portion of our agenda about when pothole filling will begin? And then I'd also like some comments about spring flushing, because I'm starting to get a number of comments and questions from residents and business owners about both issues.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, City Manager O'Toole, City Treasurer Cole, thank you very much. To any of my council colleagues, if you do have additional questions or concerns in the ensuing days or weeks, staff is always accessible, and they strongly encourage you to reach out via phone or email.
And if I can, the next steps in this process, so at the end of April, you will all receive a third draft of the budget that will have all final changes. There's a little bit of a break here because we're implementing BSNA Cloud. After that implementation is complete, end of April, you'll have the third draft of the budget. You'll have a couple weeks to review, and then at the second meeting in May is when we plan for adoption.
Very good. If there's nothing further to be brought before City Council this evening at this work meeting, is there a motion to adjourn at 6:59?
So moved.
Moved by Gearboss. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Harmount. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. You have exactly 2 minutes, and then we're going to get started. Council members Gearboss, CO, Rice, Lesh, Harmount, Mayor Pro Tem, I think will be back, Dillon will be back momentarily, Mayor Marl, and then from staff, we have City Manager O'Toole, Clerk Royal, Parks and Rec Director Lambert, DPW Director Searles. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, we welcome you, and we encourage you to sign in on the back table to my left. You may also get copies of the agenda and hearing devices if you require them. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
So moved as submitted?
Moved by Gearboss to approve as submitted. Was that a second by Lesh or CO? CO. Thank you, sir. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We have no absences this evening, so we'll proceed to the first of two public comment periods. This first public comment period is limited to agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any person may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. Please. Just talk. Yep.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, friends. My name is Cheng Ming Fan. I call myself social entrepreneur. The important topic, I'm going to talk a little bit about the upcoming April 8th strategic planning meeting. And I really appreciate all of you, the council, and also including our staff, have wonderful meetings. Just like for the record for the public, I really think that the city of Saline have so many people really want to care the strategy of this beautiful city. What are we going to do next 5, next 10, next 30 years? And I said many times, if we want to have a strategic plan, are we going to follow Mrs. Governor Whitmore for the 30 and 50 years to handle the climate change and the crisis? So I think that language is so important. We have to put that, and especially put that into our strategic plan. And just let you know, I have to postpone the meeting with promise with Mayor and Jack Seal of what I want to present it. I'm happy I didn't do earlier because I discovered so many things as it suggests that the SALT initiative I present to you and the SASS SALT initiative, Saline Area Light Tower, is not just for this city. It's not just for this state, not just for the Great Lakes. What I discovered, as long as we can reach higher above the middle portion of the boundary layer, this idea can change the pattern of how we handle the crisis of the environment and crisis of the climate. And I have brief talk with our scientist, Mr. Lodge, and share with you something about the research everybody can do without having to pay, just visit Global Wind Atlas. You can check that, put a barrier 50 meters. Michigan is the worst place. Great Lakes is the worst place because of the wind speed and the density of the wind power is the lowest. However, the same program, free, if you raise the bar to 200, you immediately see that. Best.
Thank you, Cheng Ming.
Great Lakes, thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Are there additional citizen comments on agenda items this evening? If so, you have 3 minutes.
Mary Hess, 600 Canterbury Drive, and I would like to talk about the minutes on the marijuana curbside pickup. You know, we have handicap parking at CVS, and there's apparently 3 or 4 other prescriptions, drugstores where you can get prescriptions. But none of the other ones have curbside pickup, be it Jensen's or be it CVS. So that means marijuana is more important because there's heavy drugs that go through with prescriptions with CVS too. And to have pickup is almost important. It seems that you apparently haven't thought out everybody being rather than putting 5 parking spaces aside. And then I was regarding the alcoholic drinks or even regular drinks on outside sidewalk. I wonder if you can make sure that they use plastic opposed to glass that could possibly hurt somebody. Thank you.
Any additional citizen comments on agenda items this evening? Then I would defer to the city clerk. Do we receive any written comments in advance of tonight's meeting in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time?
No.
Easy enough. Then we'll transition to the one and only presentation this evening, which is a presentation from our Parks and Rec Director, Sunshine Lambert, regarding the Saline Senior Health and Wellness Program. Good evening.
So I'm actually going to invite Laura Rakowski to join me.
My apologies, Laura. Thank you for being with us.
Okay, I don't know if everyone has met Laura. She is our new recreation manager for the department. So Laura, and maybe she can take a moment in just a minute to kind of tell everyone about herself. We're really excited to have her. So Laura oversees a lot of our programs at the rec center, including the majority of youth programming. So today was a big day for us. We kicked off our summer camp registration. We had a wonderful turnout, so we're really excited to get going on that. One of her other responsibilities, and we're excited about this, to have somebody who is working to promote memberships for the rec center. So Laura's taken on that role, which leads us to our presentation today. We've secured a grant from Washtenaw County in the amount of $25,000 to go toward senior memberships for those in need. And so this is to help promote health and wellness with seniors. So I'm actually going to step aside and let Laura talk a little bit more about that.
Lauren, before you begin the presentation, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and background, I think my colleagues would very much appreciate that.
Absolutely, Mayor Mara, I'd love to. So again, Laura Rakowski, I am this is my 6th year living as a resident here in Saline. I grew up in Ann Arbor. I am a wife and a mother of 2. I live right at 210 North Harris, so I actually walked here tonight for this meeting. My husband and I have been members of the community even before we lived here. We've been members of St. Andrews since 2011. I grew up south of Ann Arbor, right behind the Myers store, so I've been frequenting all the businesses, parks, establishments in the Saline area my entire life. So I am going to graduate with my master's in social work in about 3 weeks, and that's something that my bachelor's a long time ago was in family and community services. So the majority of my career had been in child welfare, doing a lot with foster care and adoption. Now that I've become a mother myself, I feel like I've really honored my time in that area, and I'm going back to my roots of doing more community-based work. And so when I had the opportunity to start working with Sunshine, when I was in the interim community education, recreation, and enrichment specialist role, I got an opportunity to really see all the programming that's available, all the opportunities, and the ways that we as Saline really approach community in the ways we operate with different departments and organizations and just everybody. Collaboration and community building is something very important to me. So I'm hopeful to bring that not only to strengthening the community that is the rec center, but also the greater community that is the city of Saline.
It was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Sunshine shared, this grant was secured prior to me onboarding into the department. So this was something that was a bit of a gift to kind of walk into, to have $25,000 and an opportunity to be meeting such a growing population in our community. So the parameters were that seniors were defined as age 60 and up, and they had to be within our guidelines of living, working, or owning property within the Saline area school district. The last one was that it was needs-based and income-based. So that was something that we really tried to get a bit more creative with. We partnered with Saline Area Social Services and the Saline Area Senior Center to see what was their threshold and income guidelines to define in need. Both are required to use the federal poverty lines that are associated with free and reduced school lunches. That's very common in many social service agencies. However, we have learned, as policymakers and people who study that, it demonstrates the need to have to be in extreme poverty to get full services. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to redefine what it means to be a senior in need here in Saline. So we looked at other income guidelines that are utilized across other departments and other agencies. So we came across the Michigan State Housing Advisory, or Housing Directory. There's an acronym that goes with that, I promise. But the great thing about it is that they didn't use federal levels. They looked at the average median household income by county. So we were really able to find a much more accurate representation of what households look like here in Saline. So we utilized that criteria to make our income requirements. So with that, we are making any senior, so again, that's 60 and up, who is a single-person household who makes up to $43,400 is able to get a completely free annual senior rec center membership. Those who are in a two-person household, that is $49,600. The next criteria was, because we wanted to make it tiered, that was also recommended by the county, is that to get a deeply discounted 75% off membership. If you're a single-person household, that is up to $63,300, and then two-person households of $75,750. So this was something that, when we looked at the federal lines, these were numbers that were in the 20s and 30s. So this definitely allowed more people to benefit from services. The last criteria that we put into place is currently you're not allowed to have been a member, because we are looking to the people who have not yet been able to utilize resources to meet their health and wellness needs. And I think one of the important things that we're looking at with this is it's not just your physical health. Though we are a recreation center, we are so much more than that. We are a place where people come to build community, to have friendships, to have people who check in on them. There's opportunities for emotional and social well-being in addition to addressing the physical. We have the pool at our disposal. We have the gym. Some of our favorite members actually just walk the gym as a group in the morning, and that's something that it's really looking at. It doesn't necessarily have to be cardio and classes. It can be just the place to go and have community and enhance your wellness on multiple levels. One other need that was identified through our collaboration with Saline Area Social Services and the Senior Center was that transportation is a big need for many people in Saline. And I know the city has addressed this by putting in place a contract with the People's Express to have reduced rates. Typically, People's Express is $4 a trip, whereas residents of the city of Saline already have a discounted rate of $2. Our friends over at Saline Area Social Services agreed that anyone who is a client of theirs, they will pay that $2 to and from the rec center for any of their clients. And then we also will honor that if you meet the income guidelines, you also can have your transportation covered using the People's Express from your household to the rec center and then back again. So those are the ways we're planning to use these dollars here that we've received from Washtenaw County. We've got a flyer that's been circulating. We're hoping to reach a lot of our establishments that we know our senior population likes to frequent. We're hoping to hit some of our medical providers soon. I love that Mary had mentioned earlier Jensen's Pharmacy. We've already reached out to the pharmacies. So when we're looking at those who are serving our seniors, we know who our community partners are. So this is something we're very excited about. It rolled out, what was that, early March. We kind of got things going and tweaked a little bit here and there, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to reach upwards. If we look at those total dollars, it can be 70 to 100 additional memberships for the year. So that's something that 70 to 100 additional seniors getting their needs met for health and wellness is a huge win for the city of Saline. So that was a lot.
That was good. Very good. Appreciate that. Director Lambert, anything else you'd like to add for the record this evening?
I think Laura covered most of it. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Laura. I would like to say we have the potential for this to renew, so we're trying to maximize and get as many seniors involved with this program by the end of the calendar year. So we are trying to utilize all of those $25,000 that was awarded to us so that we can, go ahead and apply, I think it's upward to 2 more cycles for this grant. So again, shout out to Washtenaw County. appreciation for this opportunity, and we welcome any questions.
Very good. Yeah, I think it was our County Commissioner Shannon Beeman who first made us aware of this initiative, or the fact that the city could apply for funds to support vital services and programs in our area. City Manager O'Toole, you also worked on this. We appreciate that. Anything you'd like to add for the record?
No, I'm just very excited to see how the program has come together.
Okay. Is there, and it may have already been produced, although I don't think so, because I doubt I would have missed it. Is there a, not an executive summary, but some sort of graphic with some pertinent details that is going to be shared on social media that could then be distributed to my 6 colleagues for us to disseminate through our various platforms and contacts?
Absolutely. The graphic that you see on the screen, Sarah Macy made that up for us. It's very simple because it's almost like a quiz. You answer yes or no, because that'll let you know which of the tiers and if you qualify for it. And then it gives general information for how you access the rec center. Because just like all of our other memberships, you do need to apply in person.
Right. And did we do a formal press release on this issue?
Yes.
Did, okay, all right, very good. Again, let me start to my right and then to my left. Mr. Lesh, any questions or comments pertaining to the presentation this evening?
Well, I'm always happy to see things happening good at the rec center, and I just have a question for our Director Lambert. Out of Washtenaw County, this is a Washtenaw County grant, are you aware of any other of the rec centers in the county that are using this grant?
I believe there's like 5 or 6 different agencies that were awarded. I have a list that I could provide you with the details of those.
Yes, there are multiple other agencies who received funding from the county. I will say we've taken a more unique approach in focusing on recreation and wellness. Some of the other agencies were like the Dexter Senior Center, IPSI Meals on Wheels, looking at construction projects or operational support.
So,
Township, I know, also received quite a bit of it, so we
So-
are the only rec center that will.
oh, that's great. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Lesh. Mr. CEO, any questions or comments?
Yes, one, Your Honor. If this is so popular that we exceed the $25,000 in terms of membership costs, will we cut off the program or will we continue to offer it? And who will subsidize it beyond the $25,000?
Well, I think that's, the roads that we'll cross when we get to that. And that would be a wonderful, situation for us to be in. Obviously, we want to maximize, we want to use all $25,000 so that we can offer this again next year. So some things that we've spoken about is, looking at offering for potentially new people then next year. So
Right.
if you utilized it this year, then you might not be eligible next year, but that would allow more people to come in and take advantage of the services. And then at that point, we could reevaluate what our tiers are, what the percentage is, to see if we need to make some adjustments to allow for more people to take advantage of this. We wanted to make sure that it was quite attractive this year because, again, our goal is to, get as many members as we can. So, yeah, we'll make adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
And we know as often,
Please.
when you get grant funding, it is use it or lose it dollars. So our goal is if we still have a surplus at the halfway mark, we will check back in and look at our criteria and look and see if we do need to restructure. I'm happy to report we already have 11 memberships that are signed up, 3 of which are the 75% discounted, and then the others are those that were the fully funded. And the feedback that we have received from those individuals was, I've always wanted to do this. This is incredible. Thank you. And that's where those first couple folks who were able to reach out to us were directly from Saline Area Social Services. So again, very grateful for that partnership.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, any questions or comments?
Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity for people that normally would not have an opportunity because they don't have the disposable income for this. So it's a great program. I guess what I'd like to understand, and I know it's a variable number, but what do you equate $25,000 to membership? So like, what is your goal? Obviously to use all of the dollars, but do you see it as, okay, we're going to get, what's the math to it of like, where do you see how many people are going to get a benefit?
Right. So as we discussed, this could assist anywhere from 70 to 100 new members for the rec center. So we kind of looked at what the low end is, what the high end, and we're also offering if there's a couple, so a family where you might have two people in the household who are both ages 60 and up, so both have to meet that age requirement to be eligible. Then we have a senior family membership, so that's a slightly different price structure than just the senior individual.
So that's actually going to lead me into it. So if it's a two-person household, you're going to roll it into a lesser category, a lesser dollar category, or are they getting two individual memberships?
So we still go with our dual membership because it's lesser than doing two individuals.
Right.
But there's just separate income thresholds for one to two-person household.
Right.
Right, so we want to make sure that they're following the same rules that everybody else follows. So if it was a two-person household and they're both seniors, and they automatically would fall into that senior family membership plan, yeah.
Okay, fantastic, I appreciate that. Now, the time frame for this, so if I signed up, not me, but if the person signed up today, they're getting a one-year membership, or is it a calendar year?
It's going to be a year from today until April 1st of 2025, so it'll be
Okay.
a full 365 days.
So then you're collecting the dollars up front. It's not a monthly allocation?
So we actually, and we will, we have to submit for reimbursement from the county. So if the individual only qualifies for the 75% discount and they are responsible for the other 25, then we'll collect that 25% from them, and then the rest will be billed to Washtenaw County.
Okay. Is it billed at the time of they join, or is it, I guess I'm just
Yeah.
looking from the city side of revenue sources. Like, are you going to get an influx of cash on the front end, or is it a monthly installment, or is it a back end?
It'll be on the back end, so it'll be, I think we're billing twice.
Yes, our reimbursement agreement with the county is 2 times, once at the end of our fiscal year and once at the end of the calendar year.
Okay. So I appreciate that. I think that's probably all I have. I know there were some questions that came about with the senior center, and if this was going to translate to the senior center. And I guess, just if you could just describe that, how there are different entities, different services, that sort of thing, so that people, because there was some talk of, well, why can't I take these dollars into programming here, or why can't I get the free bus to the senior center? So understanding what that's like.
Right, so the agreement is between Washtenaw County and the city of Saline, so the dollars need to be used through the city of Saline. In terms of like our services, the senior center offers a wonderful array of services, just as Saline Community Education and the library. So we all try to work together to make sure that we are enhancing what everybody else is doing. So they offer fitness classes, we offer fitness classes, but theirs, they do a lot more like chair exercise fitness classes, low stress type programs, whereas ours maybe tend to be at a little bit of a higher level in terms of what the demand for the programs are. So we really do try to be mindful of what all of our different community partners are offering, so that we're not duplicating services. Because really, what our goal is not to have people have to pick and choose. Actually, it enhances everybody. So if they are a member of the senior center, they can take advantage of all their wonderful services. And now they have this great opportunity to come over and utilize the services that we offer. And keep in mind, we have an aquatic center. We see a lot of seniors who come and use the pool. They'll use a hot tub just for therapy. And that's such a unique aspect, which you can't find anywhere else in the community.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for bringing that out. I really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gearba. Any questions?
Just two, when you're talking about annual household income, is there something that defines that, so that if people are wondering whether or not they qualify, does it mean all income coming in? Or does it exclude Social Security, those type of things?
So we're looking at their, and it's self-reporting, so we're not asking for tax statements, so it is their annual income. I don't know how else to describe.
It's the adjusted gross income, and that's something that if we have people who are looking at it as is this going to be a determining factor, then we're really kind of diving in deeper. But if there are people who are like, I know for sure I qualify for this, we're allowing them to just complete a simple self-certification that my household income is true based on 1, 2, 3, or 4 statements.
Okay.
That's kind of how we're approaching it right
That's helpful, just to know if you want to apply for that. And then the other one, so I'm just looking at our fees, so if you're qualified for the 75% discount, you would basically just pay $77 based on the 308, so.
Correct, and then
Okay.
140 for the two-person.
For a two-person one. Great, okay. Yeah, this is a great program, and looking forward to promoting it some more. Thanks.
Councilmember Rice?
One question in regards to People's Express. We've had a couple of organizations requesting more use of People's Express. Have you guys had a conversation with them, or is that going through SASS?
No, absolutely. That was something that I spoke directly with them, and
Perfect.
that's something that we asked that they directly bill us from their dispatch, and we have not had anybody utilizing the service as of yet. But that's something that we wanted to make sure that we had their understanding, their agreement, because we have heard some feedback in the past that sometimes there have been some challenges with that. So it was really important that we had an honest conversation, got some stuff in writing after talking to the director, and I believe it was the manager of the location that services specifically Western Washtenaw County.
Nice. I think that's great. I think the more that we have like specific programs utilizing People Express, I see maybe the more value that they'll see in continuing to make that connection with the city and continuing to provide services. So I think this is a great kind of re-entry into their program to say, hey, folks in Saline do need you to be reliable for us.
Absolutely, and we had considered even going to the local senior centers and having it be okay, on Mondays, we're going to be stopping at Linden Square, and on Tuesdays, we're going to go to Milcon Manor. So that's something that if we start to generate enough people who have access to the membership, that's where we can ask them to maybe coordinate a little better to where we can utilize People's Express in a more efficient way.
I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Right, and we also decided instead of offering just vouchers to the customers themselves, that were, as Laura had mentioned, they will bill us, because we want to ensure that the services are being used from their household or place of residency to the rec center and then back versus handing out vouchers and then going other places.
That's great, because one of the things that we have trouble with is tracking the utilization of the services. So if we can track them,
Yes.
all the better.
And that they had shared that they were able to just create a category within their dispatch program, and so that's something that learning a little bit more about their operations made it helpful for us to create that arrangement.
That's wonderful. I like, this is kind of a bit of a pilot program, so it'll be great to see if this works out and other ways that we can use it as we look at community health and wellness throughout the whole city.
Well, and again, to reiterate, when we were diving into what, the definition of need, for seniors in Saline, it really kept coming back to this idea of, for some people that need is just transportation. They don't have reliable transportation. They're not able to provide that. They're not able to drive, they have limitations. And that's something that we heard over and over again from Saline Area Social Services, from the Saline Senior Center. So this was a really important component that we were able to put together. So, and I give Laura a lot of credit because she really has hit the ground running and has, been all over Saline, talked to all types of people and giving this up.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for the efforts behind this. I look forward to seeing it grow, and I will do my best to help promote it and get some people on board.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Harmount, any questions?
Yeah, it sounds like a great program. The health and wellness of our seniors is very important. If I heard you correctly, it sounds like, do we have the verbiage in place, like, while funds last, we'll support the membership until we run out of funds? Because I know we have some, we've had some budgeting concerns for the rec center. I just want to make sure that we would have a means to be able to roll this out. And if we've exceeded the 25,000, then we would be able to, if we needed to dial that back. So the verbiage is already in place for that?
That's something we can definitely add to.
Okay, just to reduce risk. I'm about financial risk reduction.
Right, and we have
Yeah.
an internal policy that has been drawn up that outlines all the criteria and requirements. I know our city manager has reviewed that, so, and we are tracking, every day we're taking a look to see where we're at, how many, memberships have come in. So we are tracking that to make sure that we don't exceed those dollars, because once we hit that limit.
We have the ability,
Yes,
okay.
We are tracking it.
Okay, that was my main, and then the other question I had was, you had made a comment that it does not include current or previous members. What if the previous members had, is that correct, current or previous?
if somebody had a membership and it has expired,
Yeah.
and they haven't been able to come, then yes, we would.
Okay, that,
Anybody who's a current member.
okay, that, I was more questioning about the previous, because somebody could have had some financial difficulties that led them to losing their membership. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Very good. This was very informative. Let me say a couple things. One, we know that our rec center is a valuable public resource that needs to be maintained, and as we've discussed at nauseum in recent months, it needs to be enhanced. We also know that there are a number of people in the community who would like to use the facility, its programs and resources, but because of mostly financial limitations, they're not always able to do so. So I think this is a phenomenal program, a great partnership. We thank our friends at the county, specifically Commissioner Beaman, for helping to make this happen. I know that this can be successful if everybody in this room and at this dais does their utmost to promote the initiative. So I know that I will be doing my part. I'm hopeful that we can get that, is it between 70 to 100? New members in this current calendar year so that the program can be renewed in 2025 and 2026. So thank you very much for your time this evening, and we look forward to hearing more in the ensuing months. Appreciate it. We're going to move right along on the agenda tonight to the consent portion. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for discussion.
Moved as distributed.
Moved by CO to approve as distributed. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, was that Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll get you on the next one, Mr. Lesh. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as distributed signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to unfinished business, agenda item 24-50. We are revisiting ordinance number 864, water service. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt from the memo from City Engineer Humphreys and to adopt or not to adopt ordinance number 863, water service.
Move to acknowledge and adopt.
Moved by Gearbaugh to acknowledge and to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Harmount. City Manager, in the absence of the engineers, there's some brief obligatory comments you'd like to make for the record?
Certainly. We had a pretty extensive discussion on this topic at our last regular meeting. There are no changes to the ordinance as originally drafted. This, again, would change the existing city ordinance such that the ownership of the water service line is from the curb stop into the house for the resident and from the curb stop out to the main for the city.
Very good. Any additional question or discussion for the city manager as a follow-up from last week? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, before we vote?
Thank you. Just very quickly, is there any clarification if the homeowner should damage the curb stop? They're digging up their front property or something like that.
Well, certainly if it's...
At what point are they held responsible for it?
Well, in any situation like that, they would be held responsible for damage to public property at that point, if they damage the portion that was the city's share. More likely what's happening is a contractor that they hired, which we'd be holding accountable. And that's really what the permitting process is all about, because then we know who the responsible party is, and if there is some sort of damage to the public component of the service line at that point, we would hold them accountable.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I know that that was one of the issues when we were redoing some of the sidewalks. Some of the curb stoppers are on sidewalks, some are in people's driveways, and when they were taking them up, there was some damage done to them, and it was an issue as to who owns that task of paying for replacement.
And really, the hope is here, as we head into this new program as part of the lead and copper rule, we're getting a better idea of the actual location of these things. So when we get called in, whether it's us doing the work or a third-party contractor doing the work, the location is much more specific in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Any additional comments, questions before we vote? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just to tag on that, so if we discover during these that we find a damaged one, we're replacing it, correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Rice, before you vote.
So say you're having sidewalk or driveway work completed, through the permitting process, will the city come out and mark where that box is?
Yes, we always do. It's called the misdig process. Anytime you do anything underground, the city comes out and marks its utilities.
Okay, I didn't know if that was going to be part of Mystic. Okay, thanks.
If there's nothing further, we have a motion on the floor moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Harmount to acknowledge and to adopt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to the new business portion of our agenda. Agenda item 24-64, resolution number 2464, setting a public hearing for fire special assessment. This will be a motion to adopt or not to adopt resolution number 2464, setting a public hearing for May 6th, 2024 for the purpose of a special assessment levy in the amount of $578,613, which does not exceed $1 million.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Lesh to adopt. Is there a second? Seconded by Gearba. City Manager O'Toole, this is pretty straightforward and obligatory, and actually a follow-up from a more substantive discussion we had at our last meeting. Any comments for the public record?
No, really, the comment here is we're following standard annual protocol for the levying of the voter-approved fire millage. It will be the full 1 mil, which is the maximum amount allowed under that. That is not sufficient to cover the full cost of fire operations, so it will be subsidized partly by general fund.
Very good. Any questions or comments for the city manager? Comments for the record? Again, this is just setting the public hearing for May the 6th. Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Lesh, seconded by Gearba to adopt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. New business item 2465, resolution to approve charter ballot language. And you do have some supplemental material that was provided at the dais earlier this evening, and I believe the city manager also sent out a email earlier this morning to everybody on council. But this will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from City Manager O'Toole and to adopt or not to adopt resolution number 2465.
Move to acknowledge and adopt.
Moved by Gearba to acknowledge and to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. City Manager O'Toole, would you like to make some comments for the public record and primarily for the public's benefit and edification? Can you specify some of the changes that have been made to this document subsequent, yes, to the initial distribution of the agenda and support materials last Wednesday afternoon?
Absolutely. So first, this is one of the recommendations from the Charter Review Task Force in the fall of 2023. That group presented its findings, and with it, a schedule of changes. This is now the second election cycle that we're going through requesting a charter amendment. This particular amendment deals with Section 5.1 of the city charter, which talks about the requirements for running for elected office or being appointed to a board or commission of the city. What has come out of that is, one, compliance with existing case law, which is to reduce the number of years that an individual has to be a resident before they can run for elected office from 2 to 1 year. And then also to eliminate language regarding freeholders, which is a outdated term suggestive of property ownership, and more focus on just being a resident, or in this case, a citizen. There was a change from the draft that was originally shared to the one that you see today. 3 changes, really. One, just changing to make sure that the reference to elected officials was not exclusive to just the mayor, but all council persons. 2, making sure that the whereas clause in the resolution itself mentioned that we're going with a gender-neutral terminology throughout. And then the 3rd was stipulating that U.S. citizen instead of resident, so that there was an ambiguity related to how we treat appointees that are employees, such as, for example, the city manager is technically an appointee of the city. State law does not allow cities to require residency for employment.
Very good. Thank you for that. Mr. Gearba, as the council liaison to the Charter Review Task Force, would you care to make any comments at this time?
Yeah, I mean, we know, we wouldn't have to do this because state law, as city managers already mentioned, that this is already state law, that your residency is sufficient to run. It's really cleaning up the language and such that is reflective of a past, what do I want to say, praxis that no longer is in this type of a world of inclusivity and equality. The one thing I would like to have the city manager mention, and it says further be it resolved in at least 2 issues of M Live, selecting one specific publication, how does that affect us going forward?
So we have to name the publication in the resolution as part of our presentation of, proof to the State Attorney General's office that we met the criteria for posting this. We list MLive simply because it's the least costly of the options available to us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any questions for the city manager regarding the proposed charter amendment? Councilmember Rice.
Actually, just a quick comment, and just to reiterate that whenever we do these, if the city manager could just reiterate that these are the updates that go on to the ballot. So we are not approving that these updates be made. All of the electors of the city of Saline will get to vote for this. So again, we're not doing any of this behind closed doors. We just have a committee that's looking over these, and they will be on the ballot.
Correct. At this point, all city council is doing is actually approving the language for the ballot, nothing more.
Thank you.
And yeah, to piggyback on that, every charter amendment modification has to be approved by the electorate.
Yep.
Any additional questions or comments? Then we have a motion on the floor. It was moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon to acknowledge and to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 24-66, Committee and Finance Reporting Policy. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from City Manager O'Toole and to adopt or not to adopt the Committee Finance and Reporting Policy.
Move to adopt.
Acknowledge and to adopt, Mr. Gearboss?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded again by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. City Manager O'Toole, would you like to begin?
So this policy is really an effort to combine either past policies, procedures, or just best practice communications that have been shared with committees or commissions into one place. Obviously, one of the things we've talked about over the last few months, a finding of the committees on committees, if you will, in that presentation, is the disjointed nature of understanding about our budgeting process, about our procurement process, about the role of staff liaisons in those committees. So this is trying to be one condensed version of information, a real clear primer for committee chairs and committee members, specifically to reference as to how specific matters are to be handled and what the expectations are at the organizational level for participation in those groups. I'm certainly not offended. This is the first draft. If anyone has comments, Council Member Dillon has already shared some edits with me. I'm happy to edit that document either now or after the fact and present a future draft. But this is kind of the big picture of what I wanted to include.
Well, let's start with Councilmember Dillon then, so that we're all clear on what the proposed or recommended edits are to the document. And if they're non-substantive, I think they can likely just be included without objection. If they are more substantive in nature, then it may require this document to be drafted or redlined and then brought back at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, sure. I did have some edits that I've talked to the city manager about, and they are more stylistic than substantive. If you look at the red line for Roman numeral 3, the paragraph that begins all formal requests, and where it says this policy must be made by an authorized member of city staff, it would now read made by the staff liaison or an authorized, because we're referring back to the role of the staff liaison in that. And if others don't agree, please let me know. I mean, like I said, these are just my own edits.
Let me stop you real quick.
Yep.
I'm going to let her keep going with her edits and revisions. Somebody raise their hand or object if you take issue with any of her edits or changes. If not, we'll deal with them in their totality at the end of, or when Councilmember Dillon, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, yields the floor, and they can just be accepted without objection. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. Roman numeral 6, use of city funds. The paragraph would then read, use of any city funds must be for previously budgeted and approved would be added expenses, the and approved. Moving down into paragraph 7, use of city staff. In the red line, it would add, may direct the work of any staff member, any staff person, adding in, including the staff liaison of the city without approval. Continue on in that paragraph, adding the word committee before normal duties. It would be normal committee duties, referring to the city liaison's responsibility. And then in section 8, just replacing the word groups with committees in several places.
Yep. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I see no objection. Those are all reasonable edits and changes. Anybody have any issues with those? And they've already been provided to the city manager? Okay, then those can be included without, or those can be, those changes will be made then without objection. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Did you have any additional comments, Janet?
I do not.
Okay, let me open it up then. Are there additional comments or questions from the floor, specifically for the city manager? I'll start with Councilmember Rice and then transition to Councilmember Harmount.
I just wanted to say thank you for this. We had discussed this. We are encouraging that every committee liaison from council and staff continue to use the YouTube video that was created by PR Generalist Massey last year as the training, the full training opportunity. But we asked that this succinct kind of one-pager, 1.5-pager be put together so that we can reference it throughout the year without having to scroll back through that YouTube video and figure out what we were supposed to be doing. So I appreciate this. And I think, this is one of those things that maybe we'll see how this works over the year and we'll adjust as we continue to adjust the way that we're going about committees and commissions and making sure that we're all kind of heading in the same direction. So I think this is a great first effort, and I look forward to presenting it to the commissions that I sit on to see if there's any, additional feedback or if there's clear understanding of it. So thanks.
Very good. Councilmember Harmount.
Yeah, I think it's really great that we definitely recognize our people assets, and time is really important. Is there these are definitions of what's required. Is there an actual process in place of how to go about securing these, the staff assistants or staff, additional staff requests?
So the way that process works is the staff liaison should be the one making all the requests. So a staff person should be making the request to a department head for use of other staff. If the request is for the staff liaison's time, the committee chair would need to come to me to make that request.
Okay, so there's a process of if then that?
Yes.
Clearly written out
Yeah.
about how to go about doing that?
How to go about making the request. That's really what's in the policy. If you want more detail, I guess, on
Just a
where to
process
submit
flow,
to.
I'm just curious about the process flow of that.
I think maybe what would be beneficial to share with the committees is just what department heads cover what topics,
Yeah.
so that they know, and we can easily do that.
Anything else, Councilmember Harmount?
No, that's.
No? Mr. Gearbaugh?
And just to be clear, this doesn't really supersede direction given by the committee itself to the staff liaison based upon actions that they enact. So I'm saying, like planning commission, should they give direction to a staff member?
That one's a little bit different because planning commission obviously has governmental authority, so they take direct action. Yes, absolutely. Planning commission can direct activities of the organization simply.
Similar to
by the nature of it.
HDC
Yes,
and to
yep.
ZBA. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
But I'm still watching you.
I know you'll be watching me. I want to watch you.
Any additional comments or questions from the dais? I think this is excellent work and probably long overdue, but I think it will ultimately be beneficial to the organization, specifically to our boards, committees, and commissions. So thank you to everyone who worked on bringing this policy forward this evening. If there's nothing further, we do have a motion on the floor moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Dillon, to acknowledge and to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 24-62, major and local street overbrand crack sealing for 2024 spring application. That's obviously not correct. Or no, it is. Sorry. No, that's right. I'm getting ahead of myself. My apologies. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from DPW Director Searles and to approve or not to approve Schrodeller Construction to perform the 2024 crack sealing application on major and local streets at a price not to exceed $1.39 per pound.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Moved by Lesh to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second. If we add I would suggest that we put the total cost in the motion as contained on Mr. Searle's memo.
Can you read me that number, Mr. Seal?
Major streets would be $33,360.
Okay.
And for local streets would be $65,330.
Everyone clear on that? And that's outlined on the first page of Mr. Searle's memo. Mr. Lesh is the mover of that motion. Do you accept the additional verbiage?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Seal, you'll be the second? Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Director Searles, would you care to make some, it's pretty straightforward, but some obligatory comments primarily for the public's benefit?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Skedeller's done a fabulous job of holding their prices and providing a great service. The industry is kind of small as far as the name brand players that we see. They're giving us a very, very fair price based on the pounds. They're not committing us to miles or feet of filling so that we can actually match the road up that makes sense, and then we will not exceed the amounts in the locals and majors of that, of the council memo.
Okay.
So, and they've done excellent work for us.
Yes. Okay, very good. Questions for our DPW Director? Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, and then I'll jump to Councilmember Rice.
Along the lines, when they go to do this, can we put out notifications to those streets that will be impacted when they're doing it? And so people know, like, whether they should be driving on it or things like that. And I think if we can have that communication outreach to people, I think it saves a little bit of heartache on, mostly on the staff people that are working on it.
Absolutely. I have a meeting with Sarah on Thursday. We'll make this our informative deliverable for the public.
I think that'd be awesome. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Rice?
I have an operational question that I apologize for asking in the council meeting, but I was reminded of it when I walked through my neighbor's yard the other day. So the crack ceiling on North Ann Arbor Street gets chunked up by the snowplows. Is that a timing issue, or is that just what happens with snow and snowplows?
It's why you have to continue to
Okay.
reseal.
Yeah, it ends up in our yards.
Yeah, in the winter, you know, those few days that it was actually cold and those few days we actually had ice, freezes really hard. We get down pressure with the underbody plows and it does tend to take it up. Sometimes through a massive rain, sometimes with a super hot day, depending, but, so reapplying is sealing that water on the road to run off as opposed to go in the roadbed and deteriorate.
That makes sense. I just noticed it 2 winters in a row, so it's just because the winters are a-changing. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments from the dais? We have a motion on the floor that moved by Lesh, seconded by Seo with some amended language to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Last new business item of the evening is 24-67, as-needed infrastructure maintenance. This will be a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the memo from DPW Director Searles and to approve or not to approve the invoice from Granite Inliner in the amount of $305,877.76, and to authorize, not authorize the city treasurer to amend line item 590-536-973-015 to $383,271 for FY24.
Move to acknowledge, approve, and authorize.
Been properly moved by CO to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rice. Director Searles.
So with putting the cart and the horse together, we had a large number budgeted for this. We had a budget adjustment, bringing it way down. I believe I must have failed to express to Treasurer Cole how much we were doing. We're trying to get ahead of some potential SRF loan funding for any kind of 4 and 5 infiltration defects. The data that came back was not showing it. I provided you guys some maps. We've got a massive area of the sewer inspected and rated now, and we don't really have anything major planned for reinvesting in the sewer system of those pipe that we've looked at through this contract.
Easy enough. Questions for the DPW Director or comments on the proposal? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just to clarify, when we're looking at the amended line so far, did we have to transfer funds from some other source?
No, it was all still within that budget. As Director Searles mentioned, we had originally anticipated $900,000 in expenses. We're still well below the original budgeted amount, so no transfers in to cover that.
That's my understanding after speaking with the treasurer and the city manager. The process moving forward on this will be part of our improved internal controls and.
Yeah, in the future, what we'd like to see instead is with these multi-year contracts, we'll bring them at the beginning of the season, just like literally the last item we just did with the crack ceiling. So you'll get an approval for the upcoming season for the scope of work each year of the contract, as opposed to approving a 5-year contract and then not hearing about it again.
Yeah, and for myself and I look at this, luckily we had a contract that was out there we'd already authorized. It's just the issue of what the work was being done in the invoicing.
Yeah.
So appreciate you taking the lead on resolving that. Thank you.
Additional questions, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Just very quickly, and I believe the memo addresses it, I just want to make sure, because according to the contract, there's still $105,000 left. Is that work that's been completed that we don't have to pay, or is it that whole chunk of work, including for the 105,000 is moved into 2025.
Not seeing where you're talking about.
So if you look at the invoice, it shows balance to finish,
Oh,
105,000.
Work, I'm sorry, work that's been pulled off.
Okay,
We're not going to continue that, we're not doing that work
In this kind.
in this contract. And based on the results of the inspection, we're not in a hurry to go knock that work out right now.
Okay.
We're gonna take a breather on the sewer, on that portion of the sewer, and then start looking more at the east belt as opposed to west belt and central.
okay. And so was there an amendment to the contract somewhere that shows that that 105 has been taken off?
Well, so again, it's an as-needed service contract. So the scope is defined annually by city staff, in this case, Director Searles. If he narrows the scope and we say we're done at this point, that's really all that it takes to change the contract.
You just notify them that,
Yeah, we've
Okay.
already notified them that we're done with work for the season.
Okay, thank you for that
We're under
clarification.
no obligation to.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Let me just make sure there's no, yeah, go ahead.
just real quick, so we did all this work and you got all the assessments and I can see there's a whole bunch to it. What did you feel that we got out of it? And is our system looking a lot better than we thought, or do you anticipate other issues at this?
So we do have to make some investments in some minor stuff. I was kind of surprised at the amount of reaming we had to do. That's just from small leaks in the joints, which is the best defect to have. Not a lot of over the top or around the pipe cracks, and no major holes, no super separated joints. So our very small investments, the sewer looked a lot better than I thought it would.
Excellent.
It looked good.
For context, we're reducing our SRF request by 1.3 million as a result of these findings, because we do not need to perform as much work as we
Even
anticipated.
better information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be-
Buried the lead.
And that would be really good information to pat ourselves on the back about, to disseminate via social media and on our various platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It's really excellent, okay. Anything else, Mr. Searles?
I just want to ask, did I mistakenly not put our salt purchase on this agenda?
It was under consent, you got it.
It's under consent.
We know what salt's
It's already
for.
been approved.
Unless there's additional discussion, we do have a motion on the floor moved by CO, seconded by Rice, to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We come to the discussion portion of the agenda. This is your opportunity to share commission committee reports or any other pertinent information that you believe is valuable to either city council or to the community. Again, I'll start to my right and end to my left. Mr. Lesh, any reports or announcements this evening?
The Arts and Culture is getting ready to start putting the new artwork up. Should be commencing within this next month.
Very good. Mr. CO?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Thank you. The fire board recently met. We conducted our interviews of our at-large member candidates, and the fire board will be meeting again this Wednesday to discuss the members and those candidates, and hopefully make a decision on our new member. Urban County meets next week, and I just wanted to follow up. I know in our presentation earlier about the rec center and where those numbers for household income came from, I really appreciate that they use that methodology. This is something that Urban County has brought forward because they realized that there were a lot of people in need that unfortunately didn't qualify under poverty guidelines. And so by having those guidelines now be reflective of the area in which you live and that median income, it makes a huge difference, and it really does give an opportunity for the people in your community to receive services, goods, or whatever it is that they need.
Very good. Mr. Schultz, I do not have any announcements to share this evening, so I would like to relinquish my time to you, sir, if you'd like to give us an update on pothole filling and when spring hydrant flushing is likely to begin.
Okay, we'll start with the potholes. I will bring through the city manager our report of the tons that we've put in the holes this year. Twice a month is what I try to hit. In the winter, it's cold patch. It's not hot things. So we're a freeze-thaw cycle away from it popping out. Some road agencies didn't do a whole lot of filling this year just because the weather wouldn't cooperate and stay at a spot. You know, the freeze-thaw and it wants to come out with the cold patch. In the future, I expect to be able to hand you guys the route map that shows where the hot box went and when we put the hot mix down around the city. In the spring, when the asphalt plants open up, we use HMA instead of cold patch, hot mix asphalt, stays a lot longer. That's something that you can, they like to tell you it'll last 3 or 4 years, but that's absolutely not true. But for the small ones, for the small patches, we get a lot more time. Sometimes in the summer operations, when we apply it, we don't touch it again until some point in the winter when it pops out.
So we think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start hitting major and local streets?
I believe it is, I'd have to look at the
Okay.
schedule, Mayor.
Maybe just communicate that to the city manager, and she can disseminate it as part of her weekly communique. I've had several residents and business owners reach out to me about various potholes or areas that need attention throughout the city. I know the one that seems to, I have entertained a number of phone calls, emails, text messages about the small section of Ann Arbor Street between McKay and Michigan Ave. We had done some patching there in the past, and there's probably some areas that warrant a more, I don't know, I want to say patching is comprehensive, but something a little bit more serious and
More than a
long-term.
pothole.
Yeah, more than just your traditional pothole filling, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and Mayor, I don't know if everyone knows, when we do those larger patches, right, we're using a saw and we're cutting the edges and we're putting down tack, which is what helps it stick, and we're running a roller over a compactor, and they will last significantly longer.
Right. You want to transition to spring flushing?
So we've been working, this year, we've worked a lot closer with the plant as far as scheduling and how we're going to attack the flushing. Working with the operators, they say that as long as we can get done a little bit earlier, they'll be able to backwash and get us happy, get our water happy, because right now, for the most part, outside of when we've turned the valves for the water main job, we've had a very extended period of very clear water. We do still have hiccups. I'm thinking as early as 2 weeks. We've got cooperating overnight temperatures.
Yeah, right.
That's what we're looking at. So we're going to do it at night as we have in the past to limit the laundry issue.
And I assume, City Manager O'Toole, we're going to be following similar protocols to 2022 and 2023, where we put out a map to our
Yep.
residents indicating where we will be on given days?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Can you also, you might not have this information readily available, this would be something worth disseminating via your weekly communique as well, but prior to some equipment upgrades at our water treatment plant, which I believe occurred in November of 2023, we were receiving quite a few water quality complaints in late October and early November. Those declined pretty dramatically once, I think it was the green sand filter got put back online at the water treatment plant. Do you have any data right now in terms of the number of complaints that you have received via the online reporting tool?
Yes, we do actually, and I just shared, we just created a portal access for the members of the Water Wastewater Ad Hoc Committee, and I'd be happy to share that login detail with council as well. You can see in real time, we add to it when we receive complaints and the responses.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
But yes, they have dropped off significantly since that point.
I had a question for Mr. Cyril.
Please, I'm going to transition to you anyway, so it's your
Oh,
time.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
Actually, just follow up, we'd had a citizen come about, had a concern about on Rosebud Lane, an issue of a water line in. Was that resolved?
A water line?
Yeah, that they indicated they were having dark water. The individual came in, it was the son of a daughter of the owner, I believe. We never got a complaint?
Yeah, there was a
Last
public
council meeting?
comment.
That was, no, she lives on Rosebud.
Rosebud, yeah.
Yeah, Rosebud.
Marcia from the.
Yes, did you follow up? I actually sent her a personal note. I think Tesha took her contact information.
Yes, yeah.
She's the member of our, the citizen member of our environmental commission. She spoke about some water qualities in and around her home and maybe her relatives in the Wildwood subdivision. She had to leave prior to the conclusion of our next regular meeting, but I believe Tesha connected with her.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'll check with Tesha tomorrow. She just got back from Florida, so I'll
Great,
check with her
Yeah,
tomorrow.
if you could just give us a follow-up on that, because there was concern not only with the line going into that house, but also potentially Rosebud in itself, and you know our issues we've had with that in the last 2 or 3 years, yeah. Thank you. Just a couple things to bring up. As you know, we had a focus group meeting last week. Was it last week already? Discussing a community development space downtown. It was attended by different individuals, and we know that a lot of the response by the community has been exciting. And so as our city manager has indicated, she's giving a response, and we've had some indication on it. Again, it was just a start of a discussion. We received a grant and was looking at potential downtown. Nothing is in stone. It's all a potential just discussion at this point. So just want to make sure that that's clear. Members of the community, property members, business members, other individuals have been participating of it. We'll see what comes out of that, and the city manager can address that if she wants to later. We also had a joint meeting with the Saline Area Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, and city officials that discussed a number of items uptown. That was about 2 weeks ago. Last week? 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And then also, I just want to mention, risk management met. Our group reviewed a number of our concerns that we've had identified for the last 2 years, and we're successfully able to move a number of those to just manageable. And that's after the success and, again, our staff and our manager addressing those issues as we do it. We'll also be addressing some of those and bringing it forward to our strategic meeting, making it a concern, not necessarily a concern, but a priority that we as a strategic plan for our city need to continue to reflect those in doing that. And with that, that's all I have.
Very good. Councilmember Rice.
I'd like to piggyback off my colleague here and plea to the community that, there's going to be a lot going on, and I want to commend the city manager and the mayor from a request that I had a couple of council meetings ago where I said, let's stop doing this stuff behind closed doors. And we have. We've started to have these public meetings. We've started to interact more. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's a lot more to come up that community members can be involved in. So when you hear or when you post on Facebook, I heard that, just email city council, email the city manager. We'll give you the scoop. None of this is happening behind closed doors anymore. We're out in the public. We're talking to people. We're talking to community members. We're having these public conversations. We're happy to talk about it. Please, attend meetings, make public comments. If you have ideas, share them with us. This is not a one-sided conversation that we're having here. So as a member of council, I think all my colleagues would agree, we are more than happy to answer questions so long as they're sent through the appropriate channels. With that, here's an appropriate channel. So the Saline Parks Commission is setting up Friends of Saline Park. Now that's currently just going to be sort of a volunteer committee. The hope and dream is to have a nonprofit at some point. The first kickoff meeting and the first park that we're going to focus on is Mill Pond Park. So on April the 12th, the Saline Parks Commission's hosting an informational meeting to recruit volunteers for the Friends of the Parks program, which we're hoping to begin this summer. So volunteers are going to play a central role in helping the commission and DPW and the Department of Parks and Recreation not only perform, maintenance activities, but, help us to see what's going on in the parks, help us to make some decisions about the parks. The more folks that we have involved in decision-making or in, providing some great efforts in the parks, the better the parks will be. So we're in the initial stages of the program. If there's anyone out there who has a desire to participate in these sorts of things, you don't have to formally sit on a commission. It's all volunteer-based. Come join us Friday, April 12th at Mill Pond Park from 6 to 7 p.m. And then we're going to follow up with Brecken this year as well. And I believe Curtis. I could be wrong on that one. Don't quote me on that one. But looking forward to kicking that off. And then the DEI Commission, we haven't met since our last meeting, but we are shoring some stuff up with the schools. So please pay attention to both the schools' social media. It'll probably end up in the Sun-Times News and various local news outlets. We're going to have community forums, and those are going to start on April 25th. And I will be participating in that along with the school's DEI chair and co-chair as well. So really looking forward to that. And then again, as we talked about earlier, we're going to have a meeting, a work meeting, April 15th. Is that our next meeting? April.
Correct.
Yes.
April 15th to discuss community health and wellness and figuring out what some of our goals and objectives are going to be for that. And then we'll start more thoroughly recruiting volunteers to be a part of that as well. So lots of opportunities to get involved. Please, pay attention to social media and join us when you can.
Very good. Councilmember Harmount, any reports or announcements?
Yeah, I do. So April is one of my favorite months. It's Earth Month. And in the spirit, my environmental sustainability commitment is to reduce my use of single-use plastic by saying no to to-go unnecessary thin film plastics. We are going to be partnering with the Parks and Rec to do a salt park cleanup on April 28th. So I invite everybody, and I love this Friends of the Park. It's very similar to Ann Arbor's very successful Give 360, which my work is volunteered for, and I think that there's a lot of potential for that to get a lot of volunteers and help with that. So I welcome the public and our businesses to, it's progress, not perfection, but to do what you can to make a commitment to the earth this month. Thank you.
Very good. Do you have any comments?
Just Director Searles had shared with me to remind folks that the town halls associated with all of our spring and summer projects are available online, so if you weren't able to make them, please view them if you have questions, and as always, ClearGov as well. We're ramping up with that season. Obviously, everyone knows the construction out here on Harris Street. I miss the turn every time and have to go around the block to get to work every day, but there will be more to come as the summer road construction projects roll out.
Yeah, very good. I believe Councilmember Gearbaugh, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon, Mr. CEO, and myself were at the Harris Street water main lining town hall, which was very informative, and the video is online. Several of us have shared it, but if you live in that vicinity or you're directly impacted by that project, I encourage you to take a look. You'll quickly realize how beneficial that project will be to the broader community once it's complete, which I think is in late May or early June, weather permitting. Okay, very good. Please note our upcoming meetings, and of course, make next Monday's strategic planning session a priority. We'd like to start promptly at 5 p.m. City Manager O'Toole, can you remind us, is that likely to be our last session?
I believe there may be one more after that, but I don't want to speak for the consultant. So
Okay.
I mean, this will be one of our more substantive sessions coming up, because we're getting into the details.
Suffice it to say, we're getting close to wrapping this process up. Okay, and if that's not the last session, then we would be looking to schedule something for late April, early May?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Well then, again, please note our upcoming meetings. But before we transition to the closed session, we do have a final public comment period in which you can discuss or bring up any matter that is pertinent to you. This public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person, but anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Is there any public comment this evening?
Mary Hess. I noticed that you voted tonight for the residency to be reduced to 1 year. And of course, there's been opportunities I have put my name in and somehow didn't fit the bill. I would hope that the people that have the year residency is not using this for their resume. In other words, it'll look good if I'm on the committee. And I think that it's very important when there's absentees, because you are appointing the person to serve, not to have a title and then never come to the meetings. I think it's important, and I guess the question is, will the residency as far as also attendance be stipulated that that is just as important?
Attendance and active participation is the most important most important quality that we're looking for, and that's our main expectation for any individual who's appointed to a board, commission, task force, or working group within the city of Saline.
And if they do not attend a couple meetings or?
There are mechanisms by which that individual can be removed or not reappointed in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Removed is more important than not reappointed, because then they still have it on their resume.
Thank you. Additional citizen comments this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I have the honor to continue my talk. I couldn't finish for the first part. And again, I strongly encourage citizens of Saline participate in this wonderful meeting, April 8th, strategic meeting. They have doing great job, we have to know. And also talk about the environment. I think Saline City was the leader. And several people at the council still here. Dylan and Seal. And that's why this beautiful city is so wonderful. And then we have to continue this movement, protect Mother Earth. And also, Saline have done quite a lot of work, and also with encouragement and support by Mr. Mayor and CEO, I will continue the project. So, Saline Area Light Tower. I just submitted the last version of the proposal to the Eagle, which is going to present to both of you first. And that I use the name ALT, A-L-T, Area Light Tower. The reason is that because the scope should be bigger, and SALT should have the leadership in several of the pilot projects. I want to get back to the issue, why it's so important for us to lead. Saline got the lead. Why? Because we're in the Great Lakes. And our scientists did a study and was not happy to see of the WWW Global Wind Atlas. It's not that good as East Coast, West Coast. However, you raise bar to 200 meters, you immediately see Saline is the best. And also, if you raise bar to 200 meters, we can see that this is the best place as long as we reach higher enough. That's why SALT Initiative, or ALT project, which is I propose to the Great Lakes area, we have to reach higher based on the idea of biomimic and also based on the idea of biocapitalism. Look back again of the seal. It's a tree. Ann Arbor is not a tree. That is one thing we got to do it, and so easy if we do it together. I will call this my way, M-I-W-A-Y. Not M-way, not the CA way, California, not the West Coast, not the CN way, China way. Build the gigantic turbine. We got to create our own SALT initiative. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Are there any additional citizen comments this evening? Clerk Royal, any written comments received in advance of tonight's meeting in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time? Easy enough. Well, if there's nothing further to be brought before City Council this evening, we do have on the agenda a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to MCL 15-268-1C for City Council to consider an attorney-client privilege memorandum exempt from disclosure, pursuant to MCL 15-2431G.
Move to go into closed session.
Moved by Gearbaugh to convene into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Gearbaugh?
Yes.
Councilmember Seal?
Yes.
Councilmember Rice?
Yes.
Councilmember Lesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmel?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Yes.
Mayor Morrow?
Yes, we are convening into closed session at 8:23 p.m. I think I ate it all, though. We'll get some for you next time. Okay, is there a motion now to reconvene into regular session at
So moved.
8:55?
So moved.
Moved by CO, who's the second? Second is Gearbaugh. Clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Gearrow?
Yes.
Councilmember Seal?
Yes.
Councilmember Rice?
Yes.
Councilmember Lesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmel?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillon?
Yes.
Mayor Marl?
Yes. We do have, we can consider one additional action this evening, which is Agenda Item 24-69, adoption of agreement. This will be a motion to approve or not to approve the agreement as submitted.
Move to approve.
Moved by Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second?
Who was that? I'm sorry, was that Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. Get you next time, Mayor Pro Tem Dillon. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there any additional business to come before Saline City Council this evening? Then the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn this regular meeting at 8:56 PM.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Dillon and seconded by Lesh. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.